Hello, and welcome everyone to our virtual workshop series. Just a few minutes, you are going to be hearing from the DiJulius Group's Chief Revolution Officer, John DiJulius, and the DiJulius Group's Vice President of Consulting, Dave Murray, and they are going to be speaking to you today on how to interview for customer service rock stars. Before I turn it over to both Dave and John, just a few housekeeping things that I wanted to mention. I will be available in the chat, so if you have any questions that I can assist you with, ways to follow up, ways to get more information, please feel free to utilize that. If there's anything that they say that are like aha moments or things like that that you want to share with the group, please take advantage. That's what it's there for. And then John will also be taking live questions after their presentation. So anything that you would like to have him answer today while we are together, please go ahead and put those in the Q&A section on the bottom of your Zoom screen, and we will make sure that any and all questions get answered before we end our time together today. And now I am going to turn it over to Dave and John.
Thank you, Lindsay, and welcome revolutionaries to our presentation on interviewing for customer service rock stars. Welcome, Dave,
Hello, John.
co-author of the Employee Experience Revolution.
Greetings. Good to see you again. So
this is one of our webinar series that is the first and third Thursday of every month. We want to, I'm excited about this, Dave. This is something we just recently created, and this is the first time I believe either of us are ever presenting on, interviewing interview questions gauging for a candidate's service aptitude potential.
Yeah, I'm excited about it as well. And, thinking back to my career with the DiJulius Group, which is now in its 11th year, this is something we've been asked about quite a bit. And I feel as though over the years, we've kind of been able to help our clients with bits and pieces, right? Focus on this, like the engagement indicator that we're going to talk about in today's session, and some other tools that have come up along the way that we know help organizations really focus on a candidate's service aptitude. But we've never had such a comprehensive review of it, never such a comprehensive list. So this is really exciting.
So let's talk about, for maybe people who are unfamiliar with what service aptitude means, and just a disclaimer, these questions that we're going to be sharing with you are just for gauging potential candidates' service aptitude potential. These aren't all the questions you should use. Right. You don't even want to use all the questions we'll share with you, but these are some samples so you can tell if this person has the potential of delivering a great customer, client, patient experience. And it doesn't matter if they're frontline customer service reps, or they're professionals, consultants, lawyers, doctors, whoever. This is just a gauge. But Dave, you want to tell our revolutionaries about what service aptitude really is?
Absolutely. And it's really one of the cornerstones of our consulting practice. Service aptitude we define as a person's ability to recognize opportunities to meet and then exceed a customer's expectations, regardless of the circumstances. And I always like to break that down into three categories, right? So first is, do your team members have the understanding of what your basic needs are of your customers? Are they focused on that? Are they trying to deliver that every single time? Then we take it a step further in the definition and we say, do they have an understanding of what it looks like to exceed those expectations? Do they have a definition of what above and beyond looks like? They know that they have the permission to do so. We talk about this all the time, John, but one of the primary reasons that a team member will not go above and beyond for a customer is fear, right? They're afraid of getting in trouble. They're afraid of getting that slap on the wrist. So have we given them the options to follow? Have we given them kind of the guardrails of here's what you can do, here's what it looks like to really surprise and delight a customer? And then the last part of this definition is regardless of the circumstances. And that means it doesn't really matter what's going on around us. It doesn't matter if it's—
Well, it shouldn't matter. Right. Yeah.
Right. It shouldn't matter if it's a Friday and it's our busiest day and two people called in sick, right? We don't mail in the experience that day because we're just too busy. right? It's always a focus of ours, regardless of all those things that are going on in the world around us. So this is where we start with a lot of our sessions, making sure that people understand this. And so what we're talking about today is how do you find people that have that in them, right? They're already ahead of the game when it comes to service aptitude. Maybe they've gotten it somewhere else. Maybe they have some of it in them innately, but it's really something that's important. And what we have found in our consulting business is this is the number one thing that CEOs get wrong, right? Organizations fall into this trap all the time. They hire someone they think is a great employee. They're excited to have them on board, and they kind of just assume that you bring those great customer service skills with you, and we all know what happens when we assume, right? And hope is not a strategy. So the best organizations out there are really focused on creating this content, creating these standards, and then making sure that all of their team members are trained on those. And that's really what service aptitude is at the end of the day. It's the collection of all the customer service, all the experience training that you have developed, and making sure that all your team members are up to speed on that. And here's the thing that's a little scary about service aptitude, John, is we always say we get it from three places. The first place we get it is just kind of how you grew up, those experiences you had when maybe you were a youngster and going on trips on spring break or whatever the case may be, and whether you stayed at a fancy resort or a motel, it starts to give you a different definition of service aptitude. But the second place that service aptitude comes from, and we always say it's the scariest place, our previous work experiences. Because here's the thing, if you're not focused on creating your service aptitude, developing that training for your team members and giving it to them, you're literally relying on where they worked last for that service aptitude. And we all know from the experience that we get today as consumers, that may not be such a good thing. There's a lot of organizations out there right now where the experience is not a priority. And you can feel that as a consumer. So relying on that is usually not a good way to do business. Then, of course, the third place we get our service aptitude is our current work experience. And that's what we're talking about today, delivering that to our team members so they have that knowledge and they have that consistent base to go from to deliver the experience that we want them to deliver. So what we're talking about today is where can we find some people that maybe are ahead of the game? They already kind of have that within them that we talked about already. They're going to
Or
be
they have the potential, because I like
yeah.
to say a lot of people won't have the service aptitude primarily because of the first two things. We can't control that as leaders, what their people's backgrounds are and where they worked. But if they have the potential, and that's what these questions are for, then a phenomenal customer experience training will, help them get to the top. But if you don't love people, all the training in the world isn't going to change that.
Right. And here's the key too, that organizations have to remember. It's not the employee's responsibility to come to you and have high service aptitude. It's your responsibility as an organization to develop it and give it to them. And that's where so many organizations make the mistake, right? So they actually have to go through the process of having it and then delivering it to their team members. And again, to your point, John, if we hire someone with the right attitude, then they're gonna jump onto this. They're gonna love it. They're gonna say, I'm in the right place, and they're really gonna be a rock star when it comes to your customer experience.
This is the quote I posted a while back. That got so much that inspired me to sit down with you and work on what we're presenting today. So I post quotes several times a day on LinkedIn and all this, and this got so much feedback. And as you can see, it says, to be truly a customer experience rock star, your employees must genuinely like and care about others, and your hiring process must recognize those who do and don't. And so the feedback, stars and likes and loves. But then I had some people say, that's all great. Can you tell us how? Like,
Right.
how do we know that, in our interview process, if someone genuinely likes others? And as we are going to talk about on our next webinar, is the recruitment experience. And this is part of it. But this is what came out is to create this to help people have those questions so you can truly find out and they aren't just gaming the interview process. So your goal as a leader, or HR or director of hiring, whatever it is, your goal is to find candidates who are happy, kind, caring, empathetic, friendly, positive, optimistic, grateful, and genuinely like others. That's a lot.
It is.
And again, all those things, I don't think a lot of those things you can train. I can't train someone to be, positive. We can't train them. I think you can definitely train on empathy. But the optimism, happy, and Arnie Mulham, our friend from Better Book Club, always says it, and it sounds so silly, but it's so true. He says, if you want happy employee, what did he say? Now I'm going to screw it up. If you want happy employees, hire happy people.
Right.
And and then obviously the culture has to be right. So the questions, these questions that a sample of these questions that you're about to see were designed to elicit responses that reveal the candidate's approach to customer service, customer experience, problem solving abilities, and how they will interact with customers and teammates, obviously, which is critical. I love this quote: hire for the soul and train for the role. I've also tweaked that: hire for the heart and train for the part. Right? I like that. I
Yep.
like that.
It
And
also
now
reminds me. It reminds me too, John. We talk a lot when we talk about service aptitude of hire for attitude. You can train that aptitude, right? You can train
right,
the hard skill function
right.
of the job if you have the right person in place. And I think what we're talking about here really speaks to the attitude. I'm happy, I'm positive, and so there's so many great things with these quotes, but it's so true.
Yeah. So a little disclaimer here, which is very important. Please note that the interview questions provided here are designed to assist with evaluating candidates' qualifications, skills, and experience in a manner consistent with fair hiring practice and compliant with federal, state, and local employment laws. This disclaimer is provided for guidance and does not constitute legal advice. Interviewers should consult with the human resource department and or legal counsel if in doubt about the appropriateness of an interview question and topic. That costs us about $750 from our legal team to write up. So
I'm sure it did. So one of the things that we really want to be doing during that interview process is get an idea of a measurement, if you will, how often that candidate is smiling, appears happy, showing enthusiasm, kind of naturally engaging with us. How often is that happening, right? So often in an interview, a kind of a typical interview scenario, I'm the interviewer. I have my list of questions. I'm working down my list. I'm writing down answers. I may not really be paying attention to how you're answering. Yet that's such a critical part of this if we're trying to really hire on their customer experience skills, if we're trying to get a gauge of what aptitude they have. So it's really something that we recommend that people focus on. This is usually an aha for a lot of people. Very often they're not thinking this way. How are they actually coming across in that interview? Are they making eye contact with me? Are they smiling? Is this feeling natural? Or is it kind of feeling more canned where I'm just kind of throwing out the answers that I think you want to hear from me? So this is a great place to start. I love this. I know in a couple of slides, John, we're going to have the engagement indicator, which is kind of a tool that helps people track this. And this is usually an aha and a tool that people take and put into practice almost immediately. So be thinking about this as we go through these questions. And here are some questions.
And we've broken them down into categories.
Yep.
The first category is, just measuring, looking for, how genuinely happy they are and optimistic without just saying, hey, Mr. Murray, are you a happy person? What are you going to say in that interview?
Of course I am. I love life.
So these will help us So doing it. So one of my favorites is how are you doing today? And for me, Dave, that's a pet peeve.
Mhm.
I don't care who I ask. I usually get, fine, so far so good, it drives me crazy. I want something stronger. I want to be around. And listen, they're going to be at their best on an interview, right? It's a first date. And
Right.
the first date back when you were courting Tracy, and trying to get her to fall head over heels in love with you. I still believe you have a chance of that happening, Dave. But
Thanks,
um,
John.
I'm sure you opened the door for Tracy and probably paid for the first few dates. And so whatever is or is not happy on the interview process is only going to get worse when they go out there and talk to our clients. So if they're honest enough to say so far so good, or fine, good. I hate those things. I hate it. I want a better answer. I don't want to go off into a total soapbox here, but 150,000 people died yesterday. That's a true every day.
Yeah.
Uh, Assuming you're not one of them, if we're talking to you, I think you're doing pretty good. So that's even my measurement of who I want to be around, work with and do business with, is how happy are they, looking for a better answer than fine or good.
So, John, just a quick side note since you brought up my lovely
Tracy,
bride, Tracy.
yes.
I don't know if you know this or not. Some people know this, but ironically, the first time I met Tracy was in an interview.
Oh,
She came in for an interview with my department. I hired her before HR gets all in a tizzy.
right.
We were both dating other people at the time. She worked on my team for a while. I then got promoted and went to a different team
Yeah,
within
this
the
does
same
not this is not
organization.
going this does not sound like it's going well.
And then we went on our first date. So
After
everything was
after you're
copacetic.
in different departments.
Yes, I was on a different floor of the
Good.
building. Never saw her that often, and that's when we started dating.
And did
But
you
it
open the
was
door for her
I did, of
and pay
course.
for the first couple?
I did, 100%.
Good, good. All right, you want to take
So
us to the next question, Dave?
yeah, I love this question. And again, it's be thinking it's not always the answer the person gives us, but it's kind of their reasoning and maybe the
Yeah.
explanation they go into after they give the initial answer. But what is the best thing about people and customers, right? That's going to tell you so much. You're going to interview some people that are maybe coming from a bad organization, a bad experience within their organization. Maybe they're in a job where they're in the hot seat and getting yelled at all the time. This answer can give you so much insight to their their thoughts and process when it comes to customers, right? Some people are coming from organizations where customers are the bad guys. They spend their whole day trying to stop customers from getting away with things and put them in their place, right? So a lot of things come with this answer. So again, you have to answer the question and then really pay attention to not just the answer, but also maybe some of the explanation behind it.
And what they don't say, like if
Right.
they struggle for answers here, what's the best thing about people and customers?
Right. I don't
Uh,
know.
yeah, 100%. Now here's the opposite, which they may have a mouthful to say. Is all right. You answered that. Tell me what the worst thing about people and or customers are, and if they're a little bit more enthusiastic
Yeah.
or have a lot more to say, um, I feel they're going to be a challenge. They don't have a good outlook on other people.
Right. Don't be surprised if you hear something like, "Oh boy, let me tell you about all the jerks that walked in the door at my old place," because you might hear that,
Right.
and that's a telltale sign right there of about their attitude, and
Yeah.
that may not necessarily be an attitude that you can change.
Correct. And then you want to talk about this, Dave?
Yeah. What is something you love to do when you're not working? So this
Why are
really
we
gives us
asking that, Dave?
well, it gives us so much insight into their personality. Again, if they really are a people person, right? Are they going to say that they love to go out with their friends? They like hanging out at the coffee shop, whatever it is, or do they just go back to their apartment and sit there alone and play a video game? Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it really gives
Watching
you
Breaking Bad?
yes, just watching, catching up on their shows and just
Yeah.
binge watching everything. It just gives you a little more insight into their personality. Uh, Not to say that a person who might be a little more shy isn't a great people person, but people that like to be people, be with people are great people, right? So we know that they're a little ahead of the game there. So how they answer that gives you a little more insight into their personality and how they interact with folks.
Well, two things, I'm looking for there is, like you said, hey, is one of the things is they like to be around other people. But the other thing is, I don't care if they're talking about Breaking Bad or whatever their favorite thing to do is on their free time, but are they showing enthusiasm? I mean,
Mm,
if we've just got you to talk about your favorite thing to do, with your free time, and you aren't showing enthusiasm, what are you going to show enthusiasm for? You're just
right.
not an enthusiastic person. And again, this doesn't mean the wrong answer or there's no wrong answer, let's say, but the answer that you were hoping for they didn't give doesn't mean that it just means maybe a customer facing role isn't for them. Maybe they could be talented, but we just want to limit the interactions with other humans.
And that's a great point, John, for these questions. Really, all the questions we're going to talk about today. I know we're going to talk about the engagement indicator in a minute here, and I always like to remind people during that this isn't a knockout, right? It doesn't mean that this person isn't right for your organization, but maybe not the role that you're thinking of right now. If it's a customer facing role where that's 90% or more of the responsibility, maybe they're not the right person for that role. Maybe they're great for somewhere else in the organization. But yeah, just something to think about. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a knockout for the company, but maybe a knockout for that type of role.
Another great question is, do you think most customers who complain are legitimate? And I just like this to find out if they think people are just trying to get away, if they're paranoid or naive. And I guess it's all based on your culture. In my culture, I want my employees to be naive. We always go back. We don't want people punishing 98% of what 2% are trying to get away with. So again, our questions may not be directly. You may not directly agree with them. You may want
Mm-hmm.
a different answer, but I don't want someone to. I don't want to hire someone that thinks customers are out to get them.
And here's another thing that I'll add to this one too, which I think is pretty relevant these days, is this whole idea of Karen culture, right? There's this mentality of there's just another Karen, just another person yelling at me. And what happens is, and I've seen this happen firsthand, is a lot of legitimate complaints don't get heard. They don't make it to where they need to go because it was just another Karen, and that Karen could be one of our best customers, but that frontline team member doesn't know that, and that person may have had a very legitimate complaint, but that's going to get squashed because of the mentality that front facing person has with that customer. It happens a lot in today's day and age.
And here's the thing: I don't know what the male equivalent to Karen is, but I've been a Karen, right?
Sure.
At times, and I think we're all fooling ourselves if we say, we haven't been. And sometimes it's legitimate. I don't like what's going on here. Sometimes it's a tip of the iceberg of my day or week or month I've
Yep.
been having. And that I, take it out on this person. This was the breaking point, but I may be overreacting in that situation. It doesn't matter. We could all be whatever the characteristics are to describe a Karen. I know I've been,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm a pretty good customer, and I believe most Karens or almost all of them are a pretty good customer. All right, you've been teeing this up, Dave. Here
I
it
have
is.
been. I love the engagement indicator. Again, this is something that a lot of times when we're in workshops with our clients, people see this and it's an aha moment. They can't wait to use it in their next interview. It's really just a little gauge, if you will, to help you keep track of some of the things we talked about already. So while you're asking those important questions, while you're getting to know the person, really understanding maybe some of their hard skill qualifications that they're bringing to the job, mixing in some of these questions we're talking about, you're actually keeping track of how often they're making that eye contact with you, how often they're smiling during the conversation, how often they're enthusiastic, like John just mentioned before, that even if they're telling you something that they do on their free time, are they excited about it? And then how often are they engaging with you naturally? Because here's the reality we talked about already before. If they're not able to do these things when they're there selling themselves to you, chances are good they're not going to be able to do it on behalf of your brand with a customer, right? It's probably just not in them. And again, doesn't mean they're not right for the organization. Maybe they're not right for the customer facing role that you're looking to fill. So I love this because it just helps you keep track and helps act as a reminder as you're working down your list of questions to be focused on these things as well.
I can't stress enough, though. Do not do this. Do not roll this out unless you are 100% sure your interviewer is doing these. Right? I mean, if I'm interviewing you, Dave, and I'm just like, Dave, tell me about a time when and I have no enthusiasm. I'm not making eye contact. I'm not being engaged. So it's unfair to use this if you're not sure. Now, if the interview's you, if the interview is awesome, they possess all these things, which hopefully your person doing the interview or many people doing the interview are aware of this, and they live this and model this. Well, now I can hold the interviewee accountable that they're not matching my enthusiasm. They're not making eye contact with me and all these things. So love that. And listen, when we talk about making the interview process ungameable, none of this is to trick the interview. We want the candidate to do well, but we also want to make sure that we don't find out in 3 months or 6 months that this candidate is lousy, doesn't like to be around people, doesn't play well with others, is very cynical and all those things. So that's what these interview questions are. The next one is the next category is finding out if the candidate genuinely like other people. Dave, you want to start?
I'd love to. So this first question is, think about some of your favorite people you have ever met, such as friends, family, colleagues, etc. And I love this one because it gets them thinking about the positive. Then you follow up with what characteristics did they possess that made you like them so much? So what about them really stood out to you? What about them attracted you to them? And it really helps you understand how that person thinks, especially when it comes to dealing with people. And if they do find qualities that they generally like in others, because they may not. Some people may struggle with this. Some people may have to really, really think about this. The other thing that comes to mind with this question, John, that I love, it reminds me a little bit of the exercise that we do in our consulting practice, outlove the competition, right? So a lot of times it's real easy to complain about customers, complain about people, and that can become contagious, especially in a work environment when people are close together, whether they're in a phone center or working together behind a counter. You can really easily start to pile on about complaints. That exercise really kind of puts it on the ear and says, okay, instead of the negative, tell me about the customer that you love to work with the most. What was so great about them? Who do you love to pick up the phone and it's them on the other end? So just a different way of thinking about things, but this really opens up some conversation about why they are a people person.
Well, also, what are those characteristics that you like so much about, your I call it my Mount Rushmore of people. And at least two of them, Eddie Chaffetz
Yep.
and Larry Gold. And so my reasoning for why I like my people who I put in the Hall of Fame, Mount Rushmore. Because I want to model, and typically you want to model those characteristics. You'd be surprised. Some people will, look up to people, and the reason why might not be something that you want your employees to have. Another one, would you rather work alone or collaborate with a team? Sometimes people, if they're honest, will say that. And again, now you go back to, are they right fit? Is this, for a customer facing position, or is this, will they be good with a team? And there's, not a lot of positions, that, is isolated, so that's an important one. And then how demanding, do you think customers are today? Kind of goes back to that earlier one. And a lot of them are basically asking the same thing. Do you think that, customers who complain most are legitimate? So, Dave?
Yeah. And I love this one. Are people getting better or worse? Right. What are their true thoughts on that question? I mean, a lot of people that are exposed to social media for a good chunk of time, you see a lot of videos of arguments, complaints, etc. So it's really interesting to see what their thought process is on that. And it also probably speaks a lot to their environment that they're coming from and the attitudes they develop because of that environment. Remember, when you're talking to a potential new employee and you're talking about service aptitude related things, a lot of what's going to come up is where they've been in the past, right? That training or lack thereof that they received from their last organization. And that's where usually these bad habits are created, these bad attitudes are created. So in a lot of ways, you're trying to weed that out a little bit because they may already have that built into them as a bad habit from working elsewhere.
And we don't, it's real important here. You don't want a one word answer. So if I ask, in your opinion, Dave, do you think people are getting better or worse today? And you may say better, or you may say worse. Paul, don't say anything, or can you explain? and
Mm-hmm.
and and where's that coming from? Why do you think it? Again, I want positive, happy people who see, that people, obviously there's hopefully a small percentage of people that are bad actors, but for the most part, I think, people are great, and I want people on my team that think the same thing. I love this a quote by Chip Conley. I call it the friendly indicator, and it says, Chip, who is a former hotel owner, who I now believe is maybe the chief experience officer of Airbnb, says, I can get a true sense of any place I walk into within seconds by observing the quantity and quality of the employees' smiles. My emotional antenna could pick up whether they are genuine or just a mask. And that kind of goes back to your engagement indicator. Are
Mm-hmm.
they, I'm smiling at you, and, are you serious? Are you, and we do have to account for nervousness, but
Sure.
those things. So talk to us about looking for kindness and caring.
Yeah, a couple of questions on this list to help us find how kind someone is, how caring they are for others. I love this first one. When did you last make someone's day, and how did you do that? Right. So we call it a day maker. There are people that are out there looking to do that on a regular basis. We talked about previously about the science behind it, the dopamine and all the things
The
that
day maker dopamine,
the day
the
maker
helper's
dopamine.
high. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes. And so, we want people that carry that as an attitude. And so when did you last make someone's day? If they really have to think about it and it's really not a goal of theirs, then maybe they're not the right person. If it comes to mind that they did it recently and they can tell you when, obviously it's something that is near and dear to them, something they focus on. And then the
And I
follow-up
do
question.
believe, Dave, that if you're this type of person, you will have a specific story or
Yes.
several. But also I'm looking for, besides the story, right? I helped an elderly woman in, or out of a restaurant and to her car. Great. But besides that, I want to see your enthusiasm.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to say, "Oh, it was just this past weekend. I was at a diner." Right? I want to see that, that excites you.
Right. Right. And the follow question, how did it make you feel? Right. Obviously, as we've talked about already, the day maker is the one that gets more out of it. Of course, the person who had that thing happen to them, that day maker happened to them, is happy and that's great too. But it's really the day maker that gets the most at the end of the day. And so are they appreciative of that? Are they knowledgeable of that? Did they feel that? The type of people that we're looking to hire, they know that, right? They know that they're going to get much out of it or more by doing that for a customer or for whoever that person is. So it really just kind of gets an idea of where their mindset is on that. Because, quite honestly, some people might see that as a waste of time. And is that someone that you really want on your front lines?
I love asking this question to potential employees and then existing employees, and in our workshops is, after coming in contact with you, Dave Murray, how do you want your client to feel emotionally? And what you really want to do here is, Dave Murray or whoever might say, happy, satisfied, peace of mind. And then well, how are you going to do that, Dave? Like, what specifically are you going to do in that, 30-second interaction or
Mm-hmm.
10-minute interaction? I'm looking for specifics, and if they have it. And then the follow-up question with that is how do you want customers to describe their interaction with you? So if I'm interviewing Dave and I say, Dave, let's say you just hung up, depending on the position, you just interacted with, you just met with a client of ours in the future. And then I call him up and said, I believe you spoke to, Dave Murray today. What do you want them to tell me when I say, tell me about how was that? And that's really important too. Do people think this out? And again, you got to be a little bit more specific and push back a little bit. Okay, Dave, that's great. How are you going to make sure they feel that way? Instead, just that they were really happy with Dave. He was really smart. Okay, Dave, what are you going to do to ensure that they are happy, or that they feel that you are, the smartest, consultant or sales rep or whatever it is? And just to make sure, these are just, again, I want to reiterate, these are just some options, and we're only showing you maybe a third of all the questions we have. And we don't expect or recommend that you ask them all these questions. Maybe you can, over the course of, you're doing 2 or 3 interviews, you can say, all right, I asked them, these, the next person, if you want to ask them these, you can get more done. But desire, now we want to measure their desire to be great at customer experience. So on a scale of 1 to 10, Mr. Murray, 10 being the best, how would you rate yourself for delivering customer experience? What are we looking for here, Dave?
Well, we're looking for self-awareness, right? We want people that know that it's important, so it's a focus of theirs. We want people that know there's always room for improvement, right? If you hear I'm a 10, I'm always a 10, everyone tells me I'm 10, maybe maybe need to go a little deeper, because that may not be the case, right? Sometimes people that think they're at the best don't always understand or have that self-awareness. And so we got to be a little careful with this one, because the people that instantly give themselves a 10 may not warrant that 10. People that are a little more critical and thoughtful about this one, and talk about opportunities and ways to improve, and don't think they know it all, might be a better fit. But there's a lot of room for some additional questioning coming out of this answer.
Now, this is a tricky question for the candidate, because they might think they have to say 10 in
Right.
order to get the job. And so I want to be understanding, and that they are going to say that. And then on the flip side, if someone says a 6 or a 7, make sure you follow up and say, why do you say that, Dave? Because in our world, the better someone is at customer experience, the harder they are on themselves. I know, Dave, if I asked you, you wouldn't give I know you wouldn't give a 10. And, and a lot of people on the DiJulius group, or even John Robert Spot, wouldn't give them a 10. While the rest of the world, I think, would give them a 10, almost every time. We are very hard on ourselves. So if someone just says, a 6 or a 7, A, I love their honesty. But B, don't say, well, I don't want them on my team. Say, why? And that answer of why. Because, usually I'm pretty good, but I got to tell you, one time last week, I was a little distracted and I wasn't totally present, right? I'm okay with that. Not that I want them to repeat that behavior, but that they're not hard on themselves, that their standard, their bar is so much higher than anyone else's. So I like that. And then this is, even if they do give a 10, right? Well, Dave, do you feel that, you need a training on customer experience? And obviously, this is an easier question to grade someone. And if they say no, that would scare me. I don't care who you are. We could always be better. We could always be better. And so.
Well, not only that, of course, we can always be better, but we would hope that we would find people that understood the fact that maybe I'm good, but I need to learn the culture here. I need to learn what the experience is here at this organization. I'm not part of the organization yet. And I need to understand what our guardrails are, what our standards are. So I have some learning to do to live up to becoming that 10. I think that could be a great answer, a great observation that a candidate could have.
And staying at the 10, right? I mean, what do I preach, annoyingly on every consultant call?
What do you preach?
What are you consuming?
Oh, right. Staying at that 10. Yes, absolutely.
Staying at that 10. What
How
did
are we
you
learning?
read,
Hmm.
listen to, watch, this week that is going to make sure you are the smartest customer experience, employee experience consultant our clients will ever meet. So, Michael Jordan, during, his career was still practicing every day, even though he was the GOAT, right? So, love this question. What does customer experience mean to you? And just, get a feeling for what they think customer experience, or you could use the word customer service,
Hmm.
but that's really important.
And this next one, I love this one. What do you know about our company's customer experience? So hopefully we're getting candidates that are doing a little research. Maybe they understand a little bit about the role, understand a little bit about the company. Do they know your reputation, right? If you are known for providing a great experience, if it is part of your values, if it's important to you, if you've gone through the trouble of creating service aptitude, someone should know that, right? And for a lot of great customer experience focused people, they should want to be there, right? That should be something that attracts them to your organization. So do they know about that? Have they done their research? Are they just looking at this as another job, or are they seeing this as an opportunity to really be great at something they enjoy doing?
Yeah. I really like that. What I want to hear as a leader or an entrepreneur is a couple things. That they made an investment in this interview,
Mm-hmm.
they did research, and your reputation for customer experience is one of the reasons why is a major reason why I'm applying. Right. That's all I want to hear. I mean, that you get the job almost right there. And the next question is, and this is for our clients, who all have this, I'm going to show you, young Dave, our customer experience action statement and supporting pillars. And so here's one of ours for one of our sister companies, John Roberts Spa. To be the best experience at our guest day, and how you do it is know more, love more, give more. And you might give some context, but I just want to say, young Dave, who I'm interviewing for a front desk job, or anything, what's that mean to you? And just hear what, if that means something. And if they say, yeah, this inspires me, I love that you support and give
Mm-hmm.
permission and autonomy to your employees. I've heard stories, or I've been a customer, or I've been on the receiving end. So love that, and just to let people talk about that. Next topic that you can have questions for is empathy. And again, this is for our clients who have created their own day in the life of a customer video. And we learned this, I think, who was it from, Dave, that did this, that we never thought to do on an interview process? I think it was the Maids
It
International.
was the Maids International that started using this during the interview process because they wanted to see the
Reaction.
candidate's reaction.
Yeah, so I'm just going to show a few seconds because I don't want to waste the time. But yeah, we never thought to do this. Now we'll
Hmm.
show them the day in the life of our customer video, and just to see. And so let me play a little bit.
You're broken down and tired of living life on the merry-go-round, and you can't find a fighter. But
So if you haven't seen that, the full thing, we have hundreds out there on our YouTube page. You can find it, the John Roberts Spa, the DiJulius Group, the New Day. There's so many great day in the life of a customer videos that we've helped companies create. And basically, we don't want to say anything about it. Let it watch, let it sink in, and see if they have a blank stare and kind of like, yeah, okay, what else? Or they're moved. And that video moves most people. And if you're not moved, there's probably not you're not a right fit, versus this is why I want to work here.
Yeah, and here's the other thing that I love about using your day in the life video or using your action statement as part of the interviewing process. It's setting up the fact that you're different than other places, right? We have these tools in place. We utilize these. These are important to us. we're actually sharing it with you during the interview process because the expectation is that you'll live up to these things as well. So it really kind of sends that message early about the importance of the experience. So it serves so many great purposes when you use these existing tools.
All right, a few more here. Can you tell me a time when you showed empathy for a customer? I mean, that's obvious, and
Mhm.
hopefully they have a good story.
If a customer overreacted to something minor, how would you handle that? Right. So again, are they being empathetic? Are they putting themselves in the shoes of that customer? Or are they just saying, oh boy, here's another one going off the rails. Here's another complainer, whatever it is. That it's a trap that's easy for a lot of team members to fall into if we don't have the culture to make sure that they don't. And so it's interesting to see how they respond to this one based on their previous experiences.
And a sample from our last category, sample questions from our last category that we want to try to measure is curiosity, right? So how would you get some? I love to ask this. Is all right, Dave. I'm interviewing Dave, and I say, Dave, picture this: that I got someone in the room next to us, and three different people are going to get 3 minutes to go in and speak to this person, and you're one of the three. And at the end, we're going to hear from him who he liked the best, right? Pressure. You get 3 minutes, or I don't care what it is, but 3 minutes is a good time. Each of you get 3 minutes. All right. What would you do in that 3 minutes to make sure he or she said that Dave Murray guy was my favorite? Right. And so, the best answer is, we ask them questions about them. Right. I mean,
Right.
what else? I mean, what else could you do to go in there, tell them about, how much I love baseball, or how I just got arm surgery, or, my, whatever, but go in and just ask questions. Love that.
And another thing on that, John, that is not new, right? I just had a conversation with some of our clients down at First Federal Community Bank. We were doing some work recently, and we were talking about this and service aptitude and being curious and asking more questions and chatting about ourselves and that
Right.
customer interaction. I mean, that dates back to Dale Carnegie and How to Win Friends and Influence People. Came out in 1934.
Right.
And it's still the case today. And
It's the
so
Bible.
yeah, it's proven. It works over and over and over, yet not enough people focus on it. And then
No. Right. Yeah.
the other question here on curious, I love this one. What would you like to ask about me? Right. So if you're going down this path, then it's unlike a traditional interview where you're kind of going off from just the hard skill questions, just a job function question. That should spur some questions from that interviewee, right? They should want to maybe know more about you, more about this place, because it seems interesting, it seems different. Hopefully it's piquing their curiosity, their excitement. So you should expect some more and maybe some different questions than you would normally get at this particular part of the interview
Listen,
process.
if they want the job, Dave, if they're really interested in the company, again, our next webinar is going to be on creating a recruitment experience where we want those rock stars to be dying for the job. But if they really want the job, they should ask questions. They should take an opportunity. We should have to cut them off. Dave, how did you start in this business? And where did you start? And, what, questions like that. If their only question is, well, Mr. Murray, who's doing the interview, when will I hear if I got the job, or what's next steps? If that's their only questions, they're not dying to work here. And they're not a curious person. They're not a genuinely curious person. All right, so that was just a sample of the questions. Shep Hyken, my buddy and customer service guru, says anyone on the front line who is ever going to interact with a customer needs to understand this awesome responsibility they have to be the one person representing the entire company at the moment, like the CEO of the moment. Love that. Love that. We have our new book coming out that is available June 10th, The Employee Experience Revolution. One caveat I want you, our listeners, to know is that these interview questions didn't make the book. After the time we had to have the manuscript in, we weren't done with creating these questions, but we have something for you. So we only gave you a taste of those questions and the logic behind them. So if you order the employee experience revolution at this barcode, you will get the full PDF of our interview questions that gauges a candidate's service aptitude potential. So if you go here and order it, you will get all our questions. We are going to throw it back to Lindsay now.
All right. Thank you, John and Dave. All right. So I'll just reiterate a couple things. I know we were in the chat, and thank you everyone for being so understanding and patient for a little technical difficulty. But I just wanted to reiterate that everyone will be getting a copy of the recording from today's presentation, along with John and Dave's slide deck and additional resources. So I will also include the link to the day in the life video that John showed a very small snippet of. And then we'll also have additional resources if you want to learn more about the book and how to pre-order and other offerings that the DiJulius group has. So we do have a couple questions that you guys submitted. So thank you. If anyone else wants to throw questions in there, please feel free. And John, we're going to start with the first one, which I absolutely love because it's a little bit different than what we normally see. So Adam said, he's going to challenge you a little. He said he disagrees about the watching the TV by yourself for one of the things that you love to do. Have you considered that if someone works in, let's say, customer service all day and they're introverted, that how they recover is through being alone? And do you think maybe you are being a little biased against introverts with your assessment?
Great question, Adam. 100% I agree with you. We had to pre-record this. That's why it was also, I think it was choppy for everyone, and I apologize. We had to pre-record this webinar because Dave Murray was booked today, and I wanted him to be on it. But even when I was watching that, I cringed. Listen, but when I get home at night, I'm an introvert. I've spoken all day. I just want to watch my Cleveland Guardians or watch whatever thing I may be binge watching, and I agree. So the point I made was it's more what they like to do with their free time, right? And if it's watching shows or playing golf or whatever it is, watching, going to the baseball game or going to their kids, I'm looking for enthusiasm. If someone doesn't show you enthusiasm about what they love to do, they're not going to show enthusiasm on anything. So many of these questions are not a deal killer. Sometimes can only help, and then sometimes they can only hurt. Like the first question we started off with, how are you today? If the candidate says fine and okay, which is not my favorite answer, that's not a deal killer. Because they may be nervous. That's maybe their reflex. So it really can only help them that if they say amazing or great, now I'm going to give them extra points. And I will ask them, why? Why, Lindsay, why are you great today? And that is probably where I'm going to find out more about her overall attitude, or if it's just because she won the lottery today. Well, all right, that might not be how she is every day. But if it's just, because the sun is shining, I like that. So, and then you could also ask, why just okay? And just see where that question. But Adam, I totally agree with you. I'm just looking to see if there's enthusiasm when you talk about, when the candidate talks about, what they love to do.
Awesome. Okay, so next question comes to you from Ryan. He said, for the kind and caring section, when asking the first question, how do you account for an interviewee's desire to stay humble? I believe it would be possible to sense some hesitation when asking that question, and how would you address that?
Yeah, and I thought we did hit on that a little bit, but maybe not enough. Totally agree with you, Ryan. It's really the follow-up question to that. If someone says they're a 10, again, I'm not gonna swipe left or whatever the negative is on that person. It's a follow-up question. Why do you give yourself a 10? Or if someone gives them a 6, I personally, I want someone to be a little harder on themselves. I hope everyone on my team would give themselves a lower grade, because we're always striving to be better. So it's a follow-up question. Ryan, why do you give yourself a 6.5? And really, what do you say? What they say about the overall, how they can be better, and where their gap is. It's the follow-up questions on this. It's really just to get them talking and see what their take is on, like, for that question, customer service, customer experience. Lindsay, there's also a great question in the chat. Oh, you already answered it.
I was like, wait.
Wait, it was from Alicia. I want to make sure. Okay, you got it. All right, I saw that. I have more time if anybody wants to ask more questions, or what was your biggest takeaway? If you want to put that in the chat, what was your favorite question you heard and why? Which one do you want to, use next week in your interview process? Let's hear that.
Well, Debbie already put one in there. Hi, Debbie.
Oh,
She
hi,
said
Debbie.
she said she likes the tell me something good as a replacement for how are you. So I think that's a good one too. She said she learned that from us.
I love that. In 99.9% of the scenarios, because not interviewing, I still like, how are you? Just to see if they're positive, or, a Debbie Downer, if you will. But Debbie's talking about in discussing, like, with your clients, Debbie, tell me something good. That's a great technique that we teach, because so often if you talk to a client or anyone, you say, how are you? And they really go to a negative spot, it's hard to recover. So we say, tell me something good. So Debbie shares that. Debbie, what did I just see that you posted that you're committed to? Oh my God, I saw it yesterday. That you're working on something, but that you just got back from Italy, or something like that, and that keeps the conversation a positive place. But playing piano, thanks, Debbie. But but in the interview process, I do want to bait them a little bit on to see, how they respond to, how are you?
Awesome. We're getting some good feedback in chat, so I'm going to read some of it off. So Christina said she loves the idea of showing the video and getting the reaction of the candidate, so the day in the life. Corianne said she likes the question, when did you last make someone's day and how did you do it? Britt has a question of what's the thing that will get you to hire someone on the spot? That's an interesting one. Do you want to maybe answer that, and then I can go through the rest when you're done?
Yeah. Again, little things for me is if I say, how you doing? And they're like, amazing. Britt, are you interviewing with us? Is this something? No, great. Amazing, right? And that they did research and, on the company. So if we were interviewing them and, I saw your website, I know how important the customer experience is. And they just start telling us things about the company, and that they've done work, and we're not just one of 5 companies they're interviewing. And you're going to, in the next webinar is a great webinar. It's kind of a spin-off of this, is the recruitment experience. It is a lot about interviewing, but it didn't go down this vein. And then something else is a big bonus, is saying something like, Britt, do you have any questions for me? And just seeing how curious that person is. Yeah, tell me how you got into it. Why did you start this? Or, if it's not the entrepreneur, but it's just the HR or whoever manager, how did you get into this company? Did you expect to be working here? Lindsay's case, 21 years. Is that right, Lindsay? Okay, so if Lindsay's doing the interview, Lindsay, how did you start with the DiJulius group? And was it something you thought about? Like, those are just great questions that I want to see from someone that has genuine curiosity.
Awesome. All right. It looks like Alicia likes the same question as Corianne. When did you last make someone's day? How did you do it? Camilla.
Now here again, there's sides to both questions. Okay. they may come from a culture that was all policies and restrictions, and they get in trouble if they made someone's day, right? So again, I can't punish them if they can't, but you can make someone's day in your personal life.
Mhm. Oh, Camila said she loved the engagement indicator during an interview, but also holding the person interviewing accountable for doing those 4 things as well. Ryan loves the idea of using an open-ended question to gauge the candidate's passion and engagement. Trina asked about how and when they receive the interview question. So our system is automated. So whenever you place an order for the book, the email address associated with the order usually receives the interview questions probably within a matter of minutes. So just so you have an idea that those come.
If it doesn't, I'm
Yes.
going to give you Lindsay's cell phone, and you call her anytime.
Right.
Ross to John. Hey, Ross.
Yeah.
Has a question, Lindsay.
Yep.
How long does a good interview last?
Yeah.
Plan for? I've heard in some there's the long. Oh, you just
Sorry.
Lindsay, you dismissed it before I was done. The more in
These
theory,
first
the longer an interview,
longer.
the more real the person gets.
Yes.
So Ross, that's a great question. And there's so many different things now, and that's what we're going to talk about in 2 weeks. But I like interview styles. Like if we were meeting at as friends for a beer or Starbucks. I don't like it too structured. And in the book I talk about, I interview like if any of you are old enough, Detective Columbo. And for those of you who don't, Detective Columbo is this disheveling, guy who just seemed like he was, didn't know what was going on. And I kind of do that. I'm like, oh, Lindsay, I can't even find your resume. But before we get to the interview, Lindsay, I see that you grew up, or you went to, and you played softball in high school, or you went to John Carroll. What was that like? And maybe that interview candidate doesn't know, doesn't think the interview really started, but it really started. And I'm trying to get a gauge on, if she's a victim and, the coach played favorites and that's why she didn't finish playing all 4 years or whatever that is. So I just like conversational, take it down rabbit holes, because that's where I really think, and that's what we're going to talk about on the 16th, is make your interview process ungameable. Everyone comes prepared with canned answers to the most common questions they get asked on interviews.
All right. I'm just scanning to make sure we got.
I love that, Katie. And that's one of ours that I don't know if we showed today, but yeah, I want to know that if they experienced it. But again, some people that we're hiring haven't stayed at a 5-star resort, haven't flown first class. They haven't dined at a great restaurant. So we can't punish them. And their version of 5-star may be 3-star to us, and that's okay. As long as they have the potential and the want, we can get them there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then Kristen even mentioned just giving them compliments too, like complimenting their hair, shoes, etc.
Yeah.
As they're walking by, just to
love that.
Surprise. So fantastic. Thank you guys so much for so much engagement and participation. It certainly helps everyone who is joining us today get a lot more well-rounded understanding of the presentation. Absolutely. Really good service. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Good.
No. You bring up a great point. And I think next, the 16th is live, Linz. So we won't have the choppiness on the video. And I do apologize for that. But I just wanted to make sure Dave was a part of this and he couldn't have been here live. So we pre-recorded. But you'll really like next one, the recruitment experience. So many golden nuggets.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys, everyone, for spending time with us today. Again, we appreciate your feedback. I will send you a follow-up email with everything to wrap up today's virtual workshop series, and hopefully we will see you in 2 weeks. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.